I'd like to talk about circular business models as an important contribution to SDGs implementation in the Baltic Sea region. If you're in favor of my proposal, then I'm pretty sure that you will be happy to be joined by the Minister of Economics of Latvia, Mr. Ralf Nemiro. So this will be our applause for the gentleman. Thank you, Mr. Minister, and please just take to the stage.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, I just checked it out as it works, but it works very well. Today I will give a presentation on a circular business model as important contribution to Sustainable Development Goals in the Baltic Sea region. So as you can see, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals are defined by 17 topics. And today we are concentrating more on a 12th topic, which is called the responsible production and consumption, which can be achieved through circular economy. But first, let me give you some numbers. And if we are looking at the numbers, then amount of the planet's natural resources use has tripled in the last 40 years. In 2040, world population will be 9 billion, and global energy demand will increase by 25%. Which is very important, and it could cause global instability in economic field, and it already contributes climate changes which we can spot already. Even if we're talking yesterday in Latvia, there was a tornado which wasn't in that power, never been before in that power. So what is the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals? It is to produce more from the same resources and from the same energy input. We have to prevent harmful environmental impacts for consumption of toxic chemicals and emissions in the context of transport. As you can see, there is a typical circular economy chain. So you can see this is a typical circular economy chain. The goal is to reduce, to use resources effectively and for materials to stay in the economy cycle for as long as possible to reduce waste. Circular economy-based model are business model that puts circular economy principle into the practice. Each business model applies to a different part of the chain. Circular supply models reduce demand of virgin resource extraction by replacing traditional materials with bio-based, renewable or recovered materials. For example, I would like to give you some examples, which is very good in our world. So there is a Colombian company, Conceptos Plásticos, which are producing low-cost houses from the renewable plastic. And these plastic platforms are made like Lego bricks, and it is very sustainable for earthquakes and fire resistant as well. So if we are looking at a next sector, that is like how to recover these wastes and what should we do with the waste. So in Latvia we are very concentrating on waste reducing, recycling, and recycle to a biogas, which is then used for cities to power the cities. One more thing which is very important, this is a product life extension model. Extend the use period of existing products and reduce waste generation. So for example, there is like some kind of a charity donation shops, and there is like another example, there is manufacturing safety rubber tiles for sports, children, and other outdoor and indoor activities. So you can recycle old tires as well. Well, this is one of the most popular one. This is sharing economy, and it's also is in a circular economy chain. So you can see these companies which can share the car and even share a ride, like BlaBlaCars. We have CarGuru.lv in Latvia, like Atom, which is electrical scooters when you can share your ride. So these are most popular circle business model types in world. So product service system model, when you product system model, which is very new type of a circular economy, when you create service out of the products to use resources more effectively. And there is a Danish company named Viga, which like giving your children gives you to your child the clothes by some constant fee, and after child grow up, you can send them back and get another clothes for the next period, which is very good. So you can send back unnecessary clothes, and these clothes are then refurbished, cleaned professionally, and it is also something new as a cycling economy chain, part of the economy chain. So as you can see, circular business model are all about cooperation. Adoption of one business model by one company can facilitate the adoption of a different business model by others. A circular business model by closing resource loops and by slowing resource flow can reduce environmental footprint. In case of the resource recovery business model, producing raw materials via recycling can reduce greenhouse gas emissions even by 90%. So as you can see, productivity of resources and energy has increased over by 15 years constantly. So we're now going, what should the governments do? What is the government role to overcome these challenges in the Baltic Sea region? So first, promote resource management, reduce food waste, better manage of construction materials, and as well as plastic. To stand for progress to reach long-term EU energy goals, create business models friendly regulation, support innovations and research as well. It's very important. Set an example through green public procurement. So government can show some examples, or like giving the hand to this green energy, this green thinking, and go for it. So the public procurement could be very important for that. But the most important, in my opinion, is to educate and inform members of society. So they would like to choose the circular economy as a like example for the living. We have to change the minds. We have to inform society what is the benefits of it. So climate is changing. It is very important to understand it, and it is becoming globally. I was in China like 2 months ago, and even China now is thinking about to implement this renewable energy. So the planet is changing, and the way of thinking is going to the right direction, in my opinion. So, in conclusion, it is very important for Baltic Sea region countries to cooperate each other, and then we will have more effective ways to implement these global issues with the climate. So we should cooperate, so we can turn challenges into opportunities. So if we are developing these new technologies in a green energy, in renewable sector, and in this circular economy, it creates new working places, and it's just the way we have to move our thinking, the way of thinking. So thank you, and the best luck in this forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much. We will now hear about the circular economy and the BSR and beyond with Global Utmining representative, Ms. Tove Alström.
Thank you. What? Yeah. Okay. So, dear ministers, delegates, and participants of this annual forum, it's an honor to be here to be a speaker at this plenary session. First, I would like to thank the Interreg Baltic Sea Region Program and Baltic Sea States Subregional Cooperation for the opportunity to present this report about circular economy in the Baltic Sea region and beyond. So, why do we need circular economy? Do we have, yeah. It's jumping on my screen, that's why I'm looking like this all the time. The economic theories that are commonly taught today have for a long time focused on the economic system per se. As a result, we have neglected the planetary consequences of the rapidly growing economy and population. In short, the planetary services provided by the natural system has been overlooked as free gifts. This traditional way of organizing the human economy can be labeled the linear one. The linear one, where we take stuff from the crust of the earth, we produce them, we use them, and then throw them away. On the landfill, there are bigger landfills, more chemical waste, more plastic in the ocean, more carbon dioxide on this side. And that's the linear model. The drawback of the linear economy system was unnoticed while the population on the planet was small. As the population grew, the problem increased. The human population has gone from 3 billion to 7.6 in half a century. So, humanity has become to dominate the planetary machinery and is now constitute a threat to our own survival as a species. Economic thinking policies have to transform to explicitly include nature in the process. We need a circular economy for our survival. So, In this context, this is why we need good example and best practices about circular economy. The Baltic Sea region is in a good position to deliver on the 2030 agenda and on circular economy. This report shows in total 28 examples about circular economy. All examples have been described in the framework of challenges and opportunities that the municipalities, cities, companies faced during the implementation, so that you, other partners, can learn from their mistakes. So what did we find? About 50% of the examples in this report, I hope everybody, we have like 200 copies, so if you want one, so you can just grab it on the way out of here. There are about 50% of them are about waste management. 40% are about partnership, industrial symbiosis, or sharing economy. And only 10% are about the design phase. So if 50%, if we looked really hard, a lot of them are about the end of pipe. So if we're trying to bend this curve, of course, it gets better, but it will never become a circle when you only go in the waste part of everything. So it's very obvious that the transformation to circular economy has only been in the starting blocks, and the journey has only begun. Even if we are so dedicated in this room, I know everybody is super dedicated. So the circular evolution needs to go upstream. We need to have like reuse, design for reuse, so that parts can be dismantled, changed, fixed, so extend product life cycle. We need recycled materials in the products. We need to go from selling stuff to services. And we need to rethink taxation. And then we are starting to form a circle. So, if we succeed, about 56% of the carbon dioxide emissions will be depleted until 2050. Another aspect that we have to take into account is that cities across the globe is growing in number and sizes. Today, more than half of the world's populations live in cities. And in only one generation, it's expected to be 80%. So we need to double the amount of infrastructure in a very short period of time. So the intersection with sustainable cities and circular economy is an important solution. The battle of our survival is lost or won in the city. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. We really appreciate it. And so there is more to come, because we will shortly start a discussion panel about the business-driven approach to a circular economy in the Baltic Sea region. One of the speakers you already know, the Minister of Economics of Latvia, Mr. Lars Nemiro. It would be great to have you here. Thank you very, very much. We will also be joined by the Vice Minister of Economy and Innovation of Lithuania, Mr. Gintaras Vilda. As well as Mrs. Sari Rautio from Heime region. Hello and welcome. You might also be able to hear from the representative of IKEA Retail Poland, Ms. Carolina Garcia Gomez. And last but not least, EXPRA, actually Extended Producer Responsibility Alliance, Monika Romeńska is here. Okay, so thank you very much for finding time for us I would hope that we hear a lot of great ideas from today. I thought that maybe we would first hear from all of you, and if you could just say a few sentences about what you do and how do you think that translates into our topic. So, the Baltic Sea region and circularity.
Where are you?
So how would that be useful for the discussion? And maybe we start with Ms. Monika Romańska.
Thank you. So extended producer responsibility sounds very complicated, but actually it means that producers who put on the market goods, in our case packaging, are responsible after this product or packaging has been sold to the consumer. So they're responsible for the whole process. And we believe that we, the EPR systems, are somehow in the center of the circle we already saw several times today. Because the extended producer responsibility organizations implement the responsibility of the companies on their behalf. So they are the link between the companies, between the producers, between the local authorities, because with the fees that are paid by the companies, they finance the infrastructure for separate collection. And they are also in contact with recyclers, so they can give feedback back to the companies when they are producing their packaging, in our case, how to make it more recyclable. So I would say that we have quite a, role in the circular economy process.
I understand. So your specialization is, among others, it has to do with packaging and,
Yes.
and how producers can make it more ecologically savvy, so that the environment isn't hurt so much.
It is the whole process. So at the end of the day, according to EU legislation, there are the recycling targets that have to be reached by the companies. So it is the whole process that we are somehow supporting.
Thank you very much. And so that is some great expertise, and we will surely use it in the future of this discussion. Heime region is also a great forerunner in this field, so I guess your knowledge will also be applicable here.
Thank you very much. It's very nice to be here, and greetings from Finland, Häme. Yes, I think the circular economy and altogether the sustainability goals is something we can't choose if we do it. We have to do it. And when I think of my childhood in northern Finland, my grandma always told me, you have to use what you have very strictly and not to throw anything away. And I think there are some things that are similar to the circular economy thinking. It's like being smarter, being wiser, and at least in Finland we tend to have this problem that we seem always lack a bit of money, a bit of resources. But if we use them the wiser way, and at least in Häme we already have some examples of it, it'll be enough for everyone.
Yeah, I agree. Would you please give one example of what your grandma would teach you and that you still use?
Yes. Well, in our region of Häme, we are very strong with bioeconomy and agriculture. And at the moment, we are our business, our agricultural business. The ones who actually work there have been changing their systems so that we can actually, in our own ecosystem in the Häme region, we've been able to produce more. Also, not only in the Häme region, but also to the whole Finland. So it's just making wiser the things that we've been doing like for said ages.
Do you mean that there's also more cooperation between the different regions?
Definitely, definitely. Cooperation, and the other word is co-creation.
Co-creation.
Co-creation, yes, and that's always with the business. When we talk about business-driven approach, it's very important that the public sector, which I actually represent here, is not telling only what to do, but to listen and in a way, it's very important to create the trust among different stakeholders. So the business, the public, and the people, as it was mentioned earlier today, they all have to involve into this. And we shouldn't do it too difficult. I think it was very nice when you mentioned about your cycling to your grandma, because we have to have these simple examples, and then we have to listen to business very carefully. It has to come from there.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be rocket science, does it?
Yes, exactly. Even though that we also need.
that will be always needed. And actually, in one of the previous panels, we would talk about digitalization, so that maybe kind of translates to the rocket science part of it.
Exactly.
I wonder, you say creating together.
Yes.
What would be a tangible item that you, as regions, can create together?
Well, whatever. What do we think? I mean, there was a question if what is possible to do in terms of circular economy, and from my point of view, anything can be done, and it always depends on that. It must be, so to say, business-driven, so that you can see the actual possibility also to make business out of it. And I think that is something, at least in Finland, I think it's very important that we in the public sector understand that we have to be on the same level in a way. And then, of course, we have to, sometimes we have to also not only give a space for the innovation, but also smoothly help businesses to make better choices.
I agree. So that tells a little bit of what Sari Rautio may be interested in talking about. We're also interested in hearing from IKEA Retail Poland. Carolina Garcia Gomez is here. Carolina, tell me please, do you think that what you do at IKEA is also circular?
Can you hear me?
It should work.
Okay. Yeah, I think, of course, we are a home furnishing business retailers, or we have a very clear vision, which is to create a better everyday life for the many people. And apart from that, we are owning all the supply chain, from the beginning, from the design of the products, to how we produce them, to how we transport them, to how we sell, and at the end, what are the services that we give to the final customers, and even responsible or how we can take back those products. So for sure, we have a big responsibility on the circular economy and how to make it possible.
And I guess you would have much to talk about with Mrs. Monika Romeńska, because packaging is also a big part of what IKEA does. And also, whenever people buy from your shop, many of them actually appreciate that it's so condensed, like your products don't take additional space. It's almost used to the fullest. So like 100% of the box is actually filled with the product. And so that is something to follow up with. When I asked the Vice Minister of Economy and Innovation of Lithuania about what's been happening in your country, then you can actually be proud of it. Like you can speak of some great developments.
Thank you very much. First of all, nice to see you all here. And of course, thanks for organizing for such good opportunity to share the best practice in Lithuania. Actually, when we're talking about the Lithuanian industry, I think that Lithuanian industry is quite innovative. And when we're talking about the circular economy, I think that we have now a really good situation in the industry, because the industry implement a lot of solutions in order to improve the energy efficiency and the efficiency of usage of resources in the industrial processes in the companies. But of course, we have a lot of things which we need to improve when we're talking about the transport, because you know that Lithuania is a country where the normal passenger car is more than 10 years old, so it's a lot of challenges to improve the quality of transportation in Lithuania. Another challenges which we have, it's agriculture, when we are talking about the fertilizing of our land. So you can imagine that we also need to improve a lot of. But for example, when we're talking about the packaging, which was mentioned here, in 2001, the Lithuania implemented the law of packaging in Lithuania. It was adopted in 2001 and it was improved in 2012 and 2015. And because of that law, actually, the recycling of plastic materials in the manufacturing was actually totally recycled. And now we have 75% of recycling plastic materials in the packaging area. So I think
That's a success.
Actually, the success is the best example in EU. Yeah.
So that's something that I definitely wanted to talk about, and in this regard, Lithuania can really be a beacon, a good example. So congratulations on that. That is great. And when it comes to Latvia, your country also has some major developments, Mr. Namiro.
Yeah. Well, thank you. You know, I do think that, and I share this position, that we have to create this not as a challenge, but as an opportunity. So every new business model can like achieve new developments. There is a new working space and a new wider view. So we can develop and change our thinking. And at some point, like waste could be turned into an energy, especially in transportation and biogas as well. So this is like kind of a circling model, but still we are moving from waste to the energy. But the main issue in Europe, I think it's average, that we are throwing out like about 30% of our food. So maybe we should like more concentrate and go to this zero waste program, zero waste thinking, and not to buy unnecessary things, and then we have to then throw them out. So we have to start with them ourselves.
Yeah, actually, some of you might have participated in one of the parallel sessions, which was actually organized in this very hall, and the speakers mentioned the fact that food and really food which is still good to eat, but it's just not best before. Some people just don't really see the difference between best before and also when the product is expired. When something is to be eaten best before, it doesn't mean that once we've reached that limit, we can no longer eat it. And then we throw away a lot of food. I actually could mention the Polish example. The legislator already works on a new law which will compel the bigger shops, groceries, to give most of the stuff they don't sell to charities, to places of interest that really need that. And this will be quite a change because we had famous cases years ago when you would hear that a bakery owner was not able to give the bread that was left to the needy people because he would have to pay extra taxes. And so there is some legislation change. And I would actually like to ask Mr. Vilda from Lithuania, because the change that you achieved with plastic was probably also legislative change, like you would put new laws. So do you think that laws are the most successful way to do that?
No, I think that's only one way to do such things. But actually, I'm talking about the law because it was just an example which I want to mention. But when we're talking about the different ways, I think that education could be also a good example and could be a good way to solve the problem when we're talking about the convince of people to reduce the use of resources, to reduce the usage of energy even in household. So I think that we have a lot of different ways to solve that problem.
I agree, and it's always good to start on a very individual level. When it comes to companies and cities, you might not always have the government of the country working together with you, but the small decisions that you make can change a lot. I wonder how it worked with the Heime region. If you maybe remember a decision that was a breakthrough.
small example, but anyway, something that is opened up the situation for the for all of us was we have this school food. You know, every day in the school in Finland, the food is offered for children, and we have a big problem that because you have to have the food for each and every kid, but they don't eat it always so much. So there is a waste of food, good food, and then we have the problem of elderly people who are lonely and don't come along. So we combined these two issues so that in the schools, after the kids have been eating, the elderly people of the area can come and eat together. And that doesn't mean that we don't need any more extra money for that. Of course, we need promotion, which is very important when it comes to new ways of working. And of course, it's a big cultural change, you know, the kids and the elderly people in the same place. But that's a very small example, and I think that's something, it's a very good example what you told us well. So we need to have examples in every level. And of course, we need to have the strategy, which was spoken already earlier today, and then put it on the local level. What does the circular economy mean in our region, in our city, in our everyday life?
I think it's really great to hear about the low-key examples, because even though they're not whole country maybe, or whole region, they actually paved the way. So that's really appreciated. I would like to let you know that we are open to your questions, and actually to do that, you just need to go to our app. The app is still downloadable on Apple Store as well as Play. So Google Play, obviously. And if you go and find EU SBSR, that's the name of the app, and there you will be able to find us in the agenda. We're the second panel discussion, and there you can just ask whatever question you wish, and then we're gonna actually display it at the screen. We might also ask you a question in the survey, but that's something that we will announce a little bit later. And so we talk about how small steps can make major impact. I've heard that at IKEA you would have ways to check how much food is wasted after a lunch in a canteen. Mm-hmm. And so there's a contest for the employees. The less they waste, the higher they will go on the chart, which is kind of nice because rivalry and competition has always been at the heart of most people, and it kind of gives you the incentive, right?
Yes, I mean, it's one of the small examples that we do in order also to involve the co-workers, because I think we have a responsibility as a business, not only in the community as such, in the consumers. You can imagine our products are in more than 1 billion households in the world, so we really feel like, okay, we really have influence on the way customers are using or have a more sustainable life at home. So this is, for example, the weight of waste food in the canteens is one example, but we are also working a lot with a campaign, for example, is running now about a better world starts at home. And it means like we are promoting small steps that we all can do at home. Like, okay, 3 minutes shower, go for veggie meatballs or veggie balls instead of meatballs. How to storage food in order not to waste food. How can we support US LED lights? So I think it's small steps that if we all do it at the same time, we can have a big influence. So it's about education in the sense, promotion, and then also talk about responsible consumption.
Yeah, my imagination works, and I kind of think of a product that IKEA could sell, which would be maybe this little waterproof watch that you could have under your shower, so that you just make sure that it's no more than 3 minutes. Maybe that would be a successful product, reminding you that your water time is over.
Some of, because we are sharing a lot, and of course we have good ideas from customers, and some of them are using even the watch that we sell to in order to put the timing for the shower, for the 3-minute shower.
Oh, you see, so that's exactly it. And when it comes to producers and how responsible they can be, can you please, Mrs. Romejska, tell us about some changes that you have seen?
It was mentioned several times today about education and about the public awareness. And I would like to say that all our members, for example, in Sweden and in Norway, they're in Finland as well, they're working very closely with consumers, organizing awareness campaigns about separate collection. This is done also jointly with the local authorities. And there are, because when they have these national campaigns on the TV, they are competing with also companies who sell products. And they have to be very ingenious with little funds to make interesting and motivating ads so people can be motivated to do this effort, because it is a voluntary effort that we expect from people to to separate at home, to go to the container or the bag or whatever it's the system, and to throw it. So this is a voluntary action, and they have to be convinced. And in these efforts, we are counting very much on the kids. All of our members, not only the Baltic, but of course as well the Baltic states, invest in educational programs in schools because the kids are the ambassadors. You mentioned earlier today about the generation issue. So I think the middle generation somehow lost these old traditions and old responsible behavior towards nature. But now the kids, they are our characters. So they say, don't throw this here, throw it there. So I think this is an effort that is very worthwhile, and it makes me very optimistic for the future.
So you're saying that we're coming back to the right path, that we're kind of reminding ourselves of the ways to be more aware of what can we do for the environment?
Exactly.
I like that. Speaking of packaging, I know that plastic packaging is still a big thing. Well, in Lithuania, not so much anymore because they have been successful in changing that. But do you think that the business community is ready to stop packaging in plastic in 2030, or just make it reusable, recyclable?
Yes, the second, because I think we should find a balanced approach, of course, considering the functionality of packaging, because there is this balance between keeping the product and having at least packaging possible. So I would say that there are many initiatives already started by the business. As for example, there is the Circular Plastic Alliance, which is being just now developed, which aims to prove that 10 million tons of recycled plastic will be put again in the process. So this is all the stakeholders in the value chain, in the packaging value chain, are involved in this initiative. There is another initiative called CEFLEX, which means that flexible packaging from plastic, which is a bit more difficult to collect and to recycle. The idea of the project is to ensure that it's collected in all countries and that is recycled, and it is done with practical examples. There are tests which are done in the plants, how you can actually recycle this and what you can produce from this flexible packaging. The PET bottles, they are somehow more easy. But the flexible packaging, for example, is difficult, and the industry, the business understood this challenge and is working on it. So there are a lot of such initiatives, and for example, our Norwegian member, Green Dot Norway, they started a plastic pledge. So they are incentivizing their members to be responsible and to provide packaging which is more easy to recycle. So there are these European and also national initiatives taking place.
So the government is talking to the producers to start using materials which would be less harmful?
Not materials only. I mean, if the packaging is constructed in a way that it can be separated and recycled, it is not only about materials, it is the structure, how you manage, how you produce the packaging.
That is true, because many times when we buy certain products, they are just so interconnected. Different parts of the product are different materials. You would have paper, plastic, and a glass, sometimes hard to disconnect from each other. So that's also a challenge when it comes to later on recycling it. Sari Rautio is taking some notes, which may kind of prove that she would like to share some thoughts.
Yes, thank you. Actually, I was thinking about, again, what the public sector should do in order to do this business-driven circular economy. And Minister, you were talking about the public procurement to be a good tool also for this. And I'd like to point this out because I really believe that in this. And in Finland, only in Finland, it's 35 billion per year what we do by public procurement. And think about that, if we change at least only 5% out of it, it will do a huge change. And I think it would be wise to change the attitude, not that we are just buying something from the business, but to, again, co-create. When we start to do the public procurement, we tell the goals, and then we leave the floor to the business to find the better solutions. But we also have to have then the SDGs and the sustainability involved. So I think this is something we should talk more about, also in Baltic Sea region.
Mr. Vilda of Lithuania would like to relate to that.
Yeah, actually, I think that it's a really good point because from the perspective of policymakers, we understand that industry has a lot of challenges in order to improve the recycling of plastic materials, and not only plastic, but different type of materials, even the construction sector. So in Lithuania, we also count that more than 4 billion euros we spent in the public procurements. And we decided that because of innovation reform in Lithuania, we want to improve the ratio of pre-commercial and innovative, and especially green procurements. And in order to help our municipalities to do that, we start discussion with several municipalities in Lithuania in order to help them how they can to proceed with those procurements. And even the Business Lithuania or Enterprise Lithuania, it's our agency of our Ministry of Economy and Innovation, they prepared some guidance for the municipalities how they can to proceed with procurements which could be more innovative, more green, and even they start pre-commercial negotiation with a business in the area. It could be also social business, it could be NGOs, in order to improve the innovativeness of companies and to start with the new business models. Yep. Actually, I think that it's really important to understand that there is a huge possibility because in Lithuania, as I said, it's 4 billion and we spent only 4 million. In innovative procurement. It's unbelievable how many resources actually we have. So we as a policymakers, we should do that. And because of that, actually also we start discussion with our Industry 4.0 platform. It's not only digitalization platform, we call it a competitiveness platform. And we start discussion with business, with academia. Let's think how we can change our economy to the circular economy. And we start actually the project, it's called a Roadmap for Lithuania Industrial Transition to a Circular Economy. And it will be 18 months project because, you know, even with a roadmap of our digitalization of industry, we proceed actually 1 year. So we also decided to take 1.5 years in order to prepare that roadmap for the circular economy.
Yeah, definitely.
And so when it comes to public procurement, do you think that the criteria should be changed or that the municipalities should be allowed to change them in favor of green companies?
Yeah, definitely. And actually, there isn't any problems when we look at the EU legislation. It's possible already, but as you mentioned, it's all about the attitude, and you have to change the way of thinking. It was like Tove, you gave a nice presentation about what the circular economy is. So you have to change from the linear thinking towards the circular.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's not an easy thing, but you have to do that.
And I am pretty sure that companies would really support this idea too.
Yes, of course. I mean, it's part of our people and planet positive strategy, how to have the possibility in order to improve even the circular strategy into the future. And as we say, from the materials and how we work with the materials in the production of our products to be recyclable, to be renewable, also with the services. So, for example, we are testing now leasing furniture in Poland. It's a new way of doing business that we really need to try and really need to test, because also consumers are asking for that. And the third one, of course, is, as we say, the influence on the consumers.
I hear that you even consider new services, which would be leasing of furniture, not necessarily selling anymore.
Exactly. I mean, it will be in parallel. It's more how to even, we know that second-hand market is increasing. We know that sometimes consumers, they don't want to throw away things, but they want to have a second life to those products. And then some of them, they also want to be temporary. They want to lease for some time and then maybe change for other products. So we think it's a service that many customers and consumers are asking for. And we are trying to see how is this process. Of course, it's a change on the business model that we are now starting to test, especially here in Poland as one of the test countries.
Why do you think Poland is one of the countries that particularly are open to that?
Well, I guess it's, the second-hand market is important in Poland, and also the awareness about, I mean, we have done many surveys, and we know that 90% of consumers, they are really willing to change their consumer behaviors, but sometimes they don't know how to do it, and they don't have the tools on how to do it. So it's more a responsibility to how to facilitate that, how to do it in an affordable way and in an easy way, and then many more customers will join.
So the easier we make it for the consumers, for people, the higher the probability that they actually will use this.
Can I say a small thing about this? I think this is very important. We made research in Finland which said that 75% of Finnish people actually want to do the change, but only 25% do actually. And I think this is the problem. We have to make it easier for people. And in that we need, of course, the public, but definitely the businesses to do that.
So if it is there, if it's going to be more available, simpler, the chances are high that people will actually follow up with that. Mr. Minister?
Yeah, what I would like to add, even in order to help our businesses to be more social responsible, we actually start discussion with the Parliament in order to adopt a new law of social business. And the circular economy, or everything which help to reduce the energy consumption, everything would help to reduce pollution of the earth. Actually, also it's some kind of social business. So actually, I hope that in this year the law of social businesses will be adopted in Lithuania as well, and it gives a taxation advantage for social business comparing with normal businesses.
And I mean, CSR has already been part of many companies' attitudes for 10 years at least, or more. But I feel, and I hear, for example, from Mr. Minister, that chances are it actually will also be reflected in national laws or international laws, because such companies will also have more advantageous taxes, for example. They will have some incentives, for example. I would like to let you know that we have the survey for our audience, and we thank for all the votes that we have received already. You have the question, which is Baltic Sea region as a circular economy leader in the EU. And so we ask for your opinion. Only 6% of you say mission impossible. Some 3% say not worth to make an effort, which is sad as well. As you see, the charts are swinging in a way because you can still vote. Many people say it's a recipe for a long-term competitiveness. And most of you would say it's a must that we are the circular economy leader in the European Union. There's no other option for us. Would you agree, Ms. Romańska, that there's no other option?
Of course, in all Europe, of course, here as well, we should strive to circular economy. And I would like to go back to what was already said, that there is the need for this cooperation, which was repeated several times today, but it's very important each stakeholder to know its role and its responsibility. So you have to have the good legislation. Most importantly, you have to implement this legislation and to monitor whether it's implemented, because you can have the best law, but then if it's not implemented, there's nothing much. The business should take care of its responsibilities. We, as citizens, should do the right things, so help with the local authorities. We should not throw things whenever we like. We should follow the system. So I think with all these prerequisites, the Baltic region can lead in the EU, especially we know the Nordic people have this behavior and attitude towards environment, which is notorious. So I think it's a mission possible.
Mr. Nemiro, I wonder, because Mrs. Romańska just said that each shareholder should know their role. Do you think that this is a situation which is achievable in your country?
Yeah, well, we do see that this is achievable. Of course, it's at some point it should have to change the thinking. And first of all, I would like to say that these discussions are very important for us to unify our point of view. So after that, we can implement it in a regulation, and it could be implemented in a European Union regulation. So we could start our way of thinking from very beginning. It's like from kindergarten, from the school. So after that, we will have a next generation who will think totally different. And at some point, we will have these less and less climate changes at some point.
Can you give me an example of what you already do as a country?
Well, we now started the system which is based on the waste collection, because it was 20 years we couldn't take the regulation in power. So now we are finalizing it, and it took it's like a couple of months, and we will be finished. So this is the way we start. Okay, there is so many different interests in that kind of a field, but still we are moving forward faster and faster, and at some point we will see these goals in reality. So then afterwards, we will see that the regulation is what was right at that point.
Is the system that you just mentioned that will soon go into force a change, a breakthrough, a revolution in Latvia?
Well, it's not that revolution. We are more trying to concentrate to educate our society and educate in that way that we trying to avoid the people of our country to buy not necessary things. I mean, in this packaging, every package you buy, you will have to recycle it at some point. So that's why this is the mindset. So, but if we're talking about this recycling system, when you collect these old bottles or plastic things, and so that will come in power after like a couple of months.
Okay, so that's a big change. Will kids be taught at school to think about it? Is that part of the law?
Yeah, this is not a part of the law. This is part of the education system. So
it already is in place.
So it's more based on like connecting your daily life with the environment, like with the nature, so you can see that this is it have to be clean. It's not good that you drop some plastic things in a forest, and for young kids it's very important to understand that it is bad. It's not necessary. You can put your thing into your pocket and then throw it out. So it's the way of thinking that we have to love our forest or earth, and it's at the very beginning.
In Latvia, when people want to take a plastic bag from a shop, do they have to pay extra?
Well, to be honest, we have a Riga supermarket, well, huge one, when you can buy things only without plastic bags at some shops. So you can get with your own like plastic bag or what else, and
Or like your bag
not to buy another one in that shop. So.
Oh.
So it's also the way of thinking that at some point you can buy some things without the package. So I don't know, you can buy like...
That's really nice. So if I have a box and I have it in my purse, I can go to a shop in this big shop in Latvia and ask for, I don't know, a few slices of cheese and I'll get it and I can put it in my own box.
Yeah, that's true. And you can buy a kilogram of the sugar in your own box. So you cannot waste, not buy this packaging.
How many shops are like this?
Well, this is evolving now. So there was like one or two couple years. Then now it's sort. I can calculate over 20.
Okay, so it's growing.
So it's trendy and it's becoming more and more popular.
Yeah, that's a really nice phenomenon. Do you have anything like that, Mr. Minister, in Lithuania, or do you have something else?
Yeah, actually, you know, we are neighbors with Latvia.
By the way, after all,
yes. So everything is quite similar in Lithuania as well when we're talking about the public, when we're talking about the citizens. And even in the schools, we have the same programs, and even in this shop, we have also the same programs. But actually, what I would like to cost the industry. Because in my opinion, during the introductory speech, Minister said that the consumption of raw materials was tripled, yeah? So actually, what does it mean for industry? It means that the lack of raw materials will be the biggest challenge for most of us. So on the other hand, it means for industry that industry could become much more innovative because of lacking of resources. And for the policymakers, it's also really challenging to involve the industry into the discussion in order to help them to change the models of business doing. And for example, please imagine that in Lithuania we have Lithuanian plastic cluster, and most of the companies of that cluster, they are involved in the automotive sector. So when you produced the plastic parts to the car, and please imagine that you will decide to buy a new car, and according to the EU law, the half of plastics in your new car should be recycled. What you would like to get? Nice interior of car, or not such nice, because it's from recycled material. What will you choose as a customer, as a consumer?
That's a good question. I actually believe not in just recycling, but upcycling. And so I would believe and hope that maybe different parts of the car would actually come from different materials from the past, and that it would actually become trendy to have cars which have interior made out of something that used to be a plastic bag from a shop.
But you're a consumer from Russia. You have a lot of money.
Yeah.
You are new Russian.
Then I want it shiny.
Yeah. So you believe that for industry it's quite challenging to produce the plastic materials for the consumer which live in green EU. Yeah. European Union, and in not such green Russia, for example. It's just an example in order to understand how the consumers think. So the industry also should think how we can to be such innovative and from the plastic material which was recycled to produce such shining interior for the new car.
I know, it would be probably hard to eat a cake and have a cake, right? Maybe you do that at IKEA, though. Because maybe you already used some materials that had their previous life and this is their new life.
Totally. I mean, it's one of the base of the new innovation in materials. It's not only about new materials, but also how can we recycle from others. As an example, last week in the Democratic Design Days in IKEA, it's an event that happens every year. We announced that we are going to launch a collection next year, which is made from plastic that the fishermen are collecting in the Mediterranean Sea. And then with this plastic, we redo and we do some new collections. So I think there are many things, and that's why I just wanted to say that for me it's a must, and it's a must now, because this type of innovation takes time and takes investment. So if we really want to do something, we really need to start to do it now.
We better start now.
And I would like to add one. Please imagine that the European Commission will decide that half of plastic material in EU should be halfly recycled. So the question will be where we can get not the raw material, but recycled material for business, because it doesn't have the factories, a lot of factories in EU, where we can recycling the plastics in order to have such 50% of recycled materials. So for us as policy makers, I don't know how it is in Latvia, but I think it's the same situation. It's quite important to think also about the industries which we have in the country in order to help them become much more innovative, but on the other hand, to get the possibility to get the access to the recycled material, recycled plastic, which will be used in the production.
I agree that it can be a little bit challenging. I would just like to hear some final thoughts on this from Mrs. Rautio.
I think it's very important to have the real knowledge of the raw material or recycled material. And I think this is something very crucial in order to get circular economy going on. At the moment, we have feelings and we have different kinds of we don't perhaps trust so much of the knowledge, and I think this is something very important. And that is why I think universities and research must be involved as well in the ecosystem. And then I don't know if it's a modern word or a fashion word or whatever, but anyway, open data, so that everyone can have the same information. It's very, when it comes to plastic, for example, it seems to be, at least in Finland now, that plastic comes from, it's a bad word, from hell. But it's not true, because you can use it wisely and then it's good. But you have to have the real knowledge, and I think it's very important.
I think what is already happening to the sharing economy is, you know, we have a car, and this time, because it's so accessible and everybody's going to see what the exact location of the car is, and opening it will be easy. That's why we have so much car sharing these days. So we have more knowledge about where things are. And so I feel as though there is a chance that these plastic parts we will also have more information about them. And you say that data is important. Excuse me.
Not only data, I think that it's really important to understand, because the value chain of circular economy was shown by a minister during his introductional speech. So for us as policymakers, really important to understand that we also need to build infrastructure, environment. Also, we should think about the people who will be involved in this value chain of circular economy. And it's really important to change the education system, upskilling, reskilling of employees, knowledge of the recycling of, or knowledge of about the circular economy, which we need also in the companies, also in academia, also in education system, because the teachers, the lecturers, even in the schools, in the universities, they also should be competent of the circular economy. That's a lot of challenges, but I think from the other hand, a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, which kind of proves the point that many economists these days are making, that actually knowledge is the biggest and the most valuable currency of nowadays.
Exactly.
I'd like to find out about your questions. Dear audience, in fact, you can also ask me a question directly. So if you just raise your hand, that really helps. But even before that, I will soon reach you. We can also have a look at the questions that we would get from you electronically. Oh, and the mic is already there. So please just tell me your name, please.
Hello, yes. My name is Frederick Campbell. I'm coming from Sweden. And I would like to give one example of the municipality which I'm coming from. We talk about EU's targets for 2030 is 65% shall be recycled and maximum 10% is go landfill. The municipality which I come from, they collect, or the households collect all waste material, organic material, packed in paper bags. That goes to a biogas unit, which produces all biofuel for all of the vehicles in the community and all buses, so they're self-sufficient. It also collects all the garden waste, and within 1 year will produce soil improvement, which is then sold back to the citizens of the community, the municipality, at a very, very low price. And so there we talk about circular economy.
And that's, again, what place in Sweden?
That's Kristianstad, right down in the south of Sweden.
Well, that seems like a dream come true, doesn't it? It seems like this magical, happy place, Arcady almost. Maybe that's also the direction that the Hema region would like to take. Would be nice.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for example. I think we have in this Baltic Sea region, we have these local ecosystems in the circular economy, and we definitely need to learn from each other. I'd like to point out, I don't know if we have the time, but in the Häme region there is a city called Forssa, and its region, it has probably the utmost best industrial symbiosis with circular economy, and there's a really nice presentation out of it. I'll be happy to send it in via this app. But it's we have these special cases, and very important thing is that they come out and they flourish from the actual knowledge and what exists in that specific area. Even though we have to have the common strategy, which I'm very pleased of, and we have to have the action plans together, we still have to do the work in grassroots. It comes to reality. It's different everywhere.
But I think it's a really good example of how the Baltic Sea region's platform can help us in share of good practices. So thanks for such a brilliant example.
And then it goes into fuel, biofuel, which is so needed. So this is definitely a reuse strategy.
Yes. Yeah.
IKEA already does that, and other companies too. So we hope to hear more. But now the question from the audience is, how can we get small local businesses on board? Small businesses. Maybe we could hear from the entrepreneurial part of this debate.
Okay, I think that even the small business which develop the artificial intelligence and which also deal with the big data could be a good opportunity in the circular economy, because a lot of sharing, a lot of possibilities to share of data, a lot of possibilities to share of different equipment could be done because of usage of artificial intelligence. It could be developed by the small company which is interested, for example, in manufacturing. For example, if I have the factory, I have a lot of machines in the factory, but I use it only 50%. So you imagine.
That again would be, we already have car sharing or bike sharing, but that would be factory sharing.
Yeah,
exactly.
And that would be so nice, because less factories would be needed to be built,
Yeah.
It would help the environment as well. And also businesses will be a little bit cheaper to run. I wonder if, and obviously I'm not trying to ask you to speak for the whole company, but do you think that maybe IKEA could be one that would say we could share certain goods? I'll just give you an example. There is a Dutch city that has figured out that there are too many cars coming to the city, especially delivery cars. So whenever a big major car comes to the city, obviously it brings more pollution. And so they have established a system. It's been running for like 3 years. I had the chance to speak to one of the originators at one of the conferences here in Poland. And she told me that the way it works is from the big lorry, the big truck, they make sure to put all the different products of the various producers, put it on a smaller truck that is actually shared among many companies, but they make sure that it only goes to that part of the city that actually needs that. But it actually maybe also needs some changing attitude, because a CEO of a company would have to believe that he will be fine if he shares the space in the lorry with some other companies, and he will need trust.
But I think this is crucial. I think we are all convinced that we need to go into that direction, to much more cooperation between companies in every, especially now with the online business as such, and when we have to distribute so many goods to so many places, for example, in Poland. And one recent example, we opened the central parcel unit in Wrocław, close to Wrocław, and it's a central parcel unit that serves many different customers. It's not only IKEA ones. So we managed to be more efficient in the way they can handle all the parcels, and then they distribute it to the rest of the country. So I think this is coming more and more.
Would you agree that trust is needed in here? I'd like to hear from Mr. Namiro.
Well, trust is very needed, but if we are talking about these small companies, we can spot some things which are already happening. If we are looking on Germany and other Central European countries, there is a very evolving this movement of co-working space. So it's already happening and becoming more and more popular in Latvia as well. So you don't have to build one more building or office space. There is small companies which is loaning some like for one day for a couple of hours, so you can communicate together, create like ecosystem environment, and suddenly it's like sharing a common economy as well. So there is a lot of opportunities. So sorry?
And we really seem to have an agreement here that it starts on a low level, that it starts with a few people, some small companies.
With the thinking, so you can be like a chain of this whole like circular economy. So of course it's very hard to be the big company like which is producing energy or something like that from biomass to biogas and other things. There is a lot of investments. But you can be a small shop or even small company which is involved in that chain and support this circular economy.
Yeah, I totally agree on this, and I think it comes to this specialization. You know, not in every company you have to do the same thing, but you can, you know, share what you are the best of. Like IKEA, you have a lot of companies you work with, and that's the same in every, no matter which business it is. You mentioned the biofuel, which is also in Häme district something very important. There are very small businesses, and then there is the big one, but they have to work together. That's the ecosystem. There is place for everyone when you have the open data and the common goal.
Yeah, and somebody has to start, and people seem to have started already, so this is very optimistic. I have heard and I have seen that we have a question from the audience. Please just raise your hand so that I can be sure that I am looking for the right person. Somebody maybe already has a Yeah, I see the person. So thank you very much. Please tell us your name and what you have to say.
Hi, I'm Ida Lilja from Finland, and since this is the business-driven session with very many good and best practices being told to the other people around, I have a question for you. Since we have a great gap between the exemplary Nordic and Scandinavian countries in recycling, circular economy, and sustainability, how are you going to, in your position, ensure the cooperation within Baltic Sea region to prevent this gap and make sure that we all are going to be in the same page and having all the same possibilities and so on, that this idea of a great Baltic Sea doesn't crumble down to certain limits? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the wonderful question. I think it deserves a round of applause. Thank you very much. It really is true that there might be a gap if we don't try to level it up, if we don't look for a common understanding and a lot of shared practices, a lot of cooperation. So maybe we could kind of make friendships with the Heime region and then cooperate.
Yes, thank you. It was an excellent question. I think now when it's the time to renovate the Baltic Sea strategy, I think we need more ambition. We have to raise the ambition level. And earlier today, somebody said, what if the Baltic Sea would be the first plastic-free sea? We need to have a goal that is so big that none of us can achieve it by ourselves, but we need each other. So I think I would raise the level.
Yeah. So you would look for like a big goal,
Big goal, yeah.
Let's make it big.
Yeah, let's make it big. Yeah.
You wouldn't be afraid.
And then one other thing, which I think is very important, we were talking about, the gentleman gave good examples of education. I think, what if in all states or all regions around Baltic Sea, all the kids would learn in school the basis of circular economy? So that the next generation would be even wiser than we are.
Yeah. And since politicians are in here, I wonder if you gentlemen could maybe call all the ministers of the Baltic Sea countries and tell them, hey, let's do something.
Yeah, we're doing actually it in Lithuania, and as I mentioned, we have that platform. That platform is not just platform, it's platform where we with the mutual trust and respect, because trust is really important, because actually we open our business ideas for, let's say, our competitors. So it's really important to have a trust and respect in the platform. So it's need a time. But on the other hand, what we understand exactly in Lithuania, for example, I don't know, maybe in Latvia we have the same situation, that actually we're talking about the global world. And you mentioned that we need a goal. I think that circular economy itself is a huge goal of EU, because, the competitiveness in the world, where we compete with China, with USA, and we even discussed with the minister before the panel that actually EU has only one chance, as China has only one chance. Who will be the first one in the innovativeness when we're talking about the circular economy? Actually, that win. So that's why China invests a lot into innovations as well into innovation of circular economy.
There just always is this temptation to say our country, our economy needs to develop faster than others. So we'll think about the future later, because right now we need to be the most competitive. We need to make it very easy for new businesses to come. We will not worry about green procurement. But you say that we can actually be in the counter trend, and we should be not afraid to do so.
Exactly. We need to do that.
Okay.
It's only one chance to survive.
And who agrees? I just wonder. Who among you agrees? Okay. So it seems that we have found a solution. It just depends on what we do tonight. It seems as though if we go to the Solidarity Center, which is actually where the dinner is going to be, that would be such a wonderful place to sign the first agreement. and I just hope that everybody will be represented there. And also, this is a kind of invitation to all of you. Before I thank my speakers, I would like to let you know that we are kindly inviting you to take part in the dinner, which is scheduled at 7:30 p.m. And it's the European Solidarity Center. There's a few ways to actually get there. The building looks as follows. Please just remember to take a badge. There's a permanent exhibition in there, so it's worth seeing how the whole revolution of the 80s and 90s started in Poland. How to get there? Well, you can use a hybrid car. That's a very good solution, but even better would be to take one of the 3 solar boats. They just use the sun, so that's the perfect example. And if you feel like cycling a little bit, you can take the bike. The different ways of transportations are located in the places which you can see. But in fact, if you use the app, you will also be able to check where your transportation is. You can obviously just walk there, and how to get there by foot is actually seen in here. And when it comes to bikes, this is the number of them. We have 40. And importantly, you don't have to pay for them. They are paid for you already, and you see the tag where they are. It actually will start at 6 p.m. So, well, they actually are waiting for you. And the boat as well, there are 3 of them. I would think that that would be kind of exciting. There's just place for 9 people, but just don't think that you will never make it, because everybody maybe thinks they will never make it, and then they will just go empty. So it makes sense after all. This is how you can get there, and maybe the least popular among us option, and yet a very popular usually, is the eco cars. Well, they are actually eco cars, so I'm not worried. From 6 to 7:45 p.m., one can take 4 people, so that's kind of nice. And that's about it when it comes to the dinner. But it's not about it when it comes to the discussion. I just wanted to say that a summary maybe wouldn't be that needed, because I feel like a lot of what we've been talking about will really stay in our minds. I see that both the producers and companies are eager to bring changes. And it also comes to efficiency, but also sharing some of the resources that you have. You're not afraid of that. You have a lot of trust. And actually, we trust with the ministers and with the local authorities that if we actually think that somebody should be the first one to start, not China, not the rest of the world, but actually Europe, then we will actually be the ones to succeed. We just should not be afraid. So that sounds like quite a conclusion. Ralf Nemiro, Gintaras Vilda, Sari Rautio, Carolina Garcia Gomez, Monika Romeńska were our guests. Thank you so very much. It was my pleasure, and I beg for your applause for
Thank you.
the panelists.